So let's go in and check out Neyland Gallery, one of my favorite galleries in Sun Valley. Come on. So I am here in Neyland Gallery in beautiful Sun Valley, Idaho today with one of my favorite friends and artists, Stephen Lee Adams. And last night was the big winter gallery walk, and one of the most fun events of the season in the art world in Sun Valley. And I stopped in to see you. There was a big crowd. You were showing with our good friend Robert Moore, and how do you think it went?
Oh, it was great. It was great. We had a huge crowd. Always, gallery walks are fantastic here, and it's hard to get around so many people, and it was really enjoyable. Great to see a lot of people that we see once a year or sometimes twice a year. It's fantastic.
Right. So what's it like? You kind of stand in front of your work and visit with people. How is it being an artist? You work so hard on this beautiful exhibition, and then what? You stand there, and what happens?
Well, you know, early on, I think there's a lot of pressure when you're younger artists. You know, you feel like things have to move. Right. You've got to get something going. But now, once you've got the work done, it's a success. You've done it. You're there, and it's really more of a celebration of kind of almost like you've had a baby and everybody gets to see the baby pass it around, and it's kind of a fun, it's more of a fun thing, and really an enjoyable thing.
Good. It's fun to watch you work, and on Facebook I noticed that you were working on this piece up till the last minute. Right after you hung it, you took it down and you worked on it a little bit more, and that's kind of classic Stephen, by the way. So what did you notice that you wanted to do differently? And how do you know when a painting is done? You know, I love that question. So.
Yeah, they're really never done, I don't think. If you ask most artists, they just you know, if you're not seeing something that you want to do to it, then I guess it's done. But
so what did you, because I saw this hanging the other day and thought it looked fabulous. What did you?
Well, it's still not done.
Oh, it's still not done. Okay.
I've still got some work.
Don't say that because it's up for sale.
No, I'm going to do some work today on it, actually. But yeah, it's a lot of times when you get away from a painting, and then you have a few weeks away from it. So I sent the work up a few weeks ago. When I got here, it was immediately obvious to me that there were a few things weren't as harmonious as I would have liked them to be. So what I did was just did a glaze on the painting, starting from top to bottom, kind of a warm yellowy glaze that rolled down into more of an alizarin crimson color toward the bottom, which helped to define the late afternoon light as it's warmer up top, and it starts to cool down as it gets down in the shadows. So that was what I did yesterday, and then you always want to come and I've got a few little areas that I want to pop.
Right.
You know,
well, the different lighting changes. Like your lighting in your studio doesn't completely match the lighting in the gallery, and sometimes when you take a painting out of your studio and put it in a gallery, you do notice little nuances that the average person would never notice, but that's what makes you the artist. You know?
And you know, at every stage of your career, you're learning and growing, so you're learning more. So something that may have been, you wouldn't have known what to do maybe a couple of years ago on a piece, if you're growing and learning, then, I can take that further. I can push a few areas on that. So that's kind of it. I think if you're an artist, you're always pushing edges and trying to learn more as part of it.
And so you are from Utah. Robert's an Idaho artist, I'm an Idaho gal, and then you're from Utah, and you grew up kind of in the Salt Lake area, correct?
Provo area mostly,
But now you've moved to a tiny little town called?
Helper.
Yeah. Which has an interesting story in itself. Like, that's an odd name, Helper, and
the only town in America named Helper.
Right?
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So why is it called Helper, first of all?
Well, it's on the eastern side of the Wasatch Range, and it's the last town before you head up into the range, but it's also a Union Pacific Amtrak town. So they put the Helper engines on the train to get it up and over the Wasatch.
It reminds me of that, remember that book, The Little Engine
Little
That
Engine,
Could?
yeah.
So that kind of, when you told me that, it reminds me of that story.
Right.
So, and it was basically kind of almost like a ghost town. I mean, very, very small.
Yeah, it was a boom town
At
in
one
the back when coal was king and railroad was king, and there were 17 brothels.
In Utah.
In Utah. I think they had 27 bars in this little town.
Oh my goodness.
And there were just
Paint and place, right?
and it was a very I think somebody told me it's the only town in Utah that wasn't Mormon colonized initially.
Doesn't sound like Mormons would.
Yeah, no. So you had the coal industry and the railroad industry. So the main thrust were Italians and Greeks and Chinese, and so that still has that flavor.
Right.
It's
So some of the descendants are still there?
Really? It's mostly
That's
the
so
descendants.
interesting.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but an influx of artists, because where this was this town, just like Park City, a mining town with all these old wonderful buildings on Main Street. Well, it was dilapidated and falling apart and basically a ghost town. And so then you had artists start to infiltrate and buy these buildings. And I bought mine.
And you?
Yeah, 3 years ago.
Yours is the old
J.C. Penney building.
I was going to say Sears, but
yeah,
J.C.
J.C. Penney building.
Okay.
Built in 1927.
And it's on the main street.
Yep, on the main drag.
And you've turned it into the Stephen Lee Adams
Gallery / studio / frame shop
and
/
beautiful.
living space.
And I haven't been there. I will someday come down and visit you guys. But I've just invited myself. But anyway, but I really want to see it.
You're more than welcome.
I really want to see it. But the pictures I've seen are beautiful. And, that's another thing that's so interesting about Stephen is he's very, very talented in many areas. And you make your own frames. You have made your own frames for years. And then you also are a musician. You play the guitar, and you've been in a band. And do you still? I've heard you play, but you're not in a band anymore. But
no, not
you were
currently.
kind of pretty popular at one point, though.
Oh yeah, we
you
had
a
this
cult following.
little thing back in the new wave era.
New wave, okay.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah, that's great. So back to Helper.
Yes.
You have your gallery walks, and they're called First
Fridays. Yeah.
And how do you get people there?
Well, we have an amazing town culture now. Our mayor is fantastic. She does a lot of. It's like a full-time job for her. I don't think she gets paid much, and our city council is great. And then there's just this upswelling of energy and interest from a lot of different entrepreneurs and artists, and it's just bubbling there. It's like maybe Park City 50 years ago, and with a lot of great art and galleries and stuff. So it's really fun. On the way to Moab, so if you're going to Moab, it's the first town you get to over the Wasatch.
That's great. And I know you love to travel like I do. And one of the fun stories a couple years back is you had your old camper, and you traveled around the West and kind of painted.
Yeah.
And he had trials and tribulations, and on social media we were following him. And his whole camper would break down in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I had to get towed out a couple of times.
But you create a lot of great work from that experience.
Yeah, it was really fun. What happened was I had a show in 2 weeks that I didn't have any paintings for that show. And I went to bed having anxiety attacks about it, and woke up and woke up in the morning with this idea that I'll paint the show on the way to the show. And so I had to paint 2 paintings a day for 2 weeks.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
While I was driving around the country.
Amazing.
Yeah. And the show was over in Boulder, Colorado.
Oh, that's great.
So I was all alone, and I had to really be focused for 2 weeks solid, getting paintings that would be worthy of a show, and so that was.
I love those
good
stories,
work.
kind of the stuff that people don't see, what the artist goes through.
Yeah.
So I'd love you to talk about a couple of your paintings we have hanging in this show. So Steve, I want to talk about this painting behind us because it's magnificent, first of all.
Thank you.
And you kind of showed me what inspired you, and I'm excited for the audience to see where you got this inspiration from. But let's talk about it for a minute. Okay, so is this near Helper?
Yeah, this is about 45 minutes from my house.
Okay.
I hesitate to even tell people where it is because it's it's the San Rafael Swell, which is like a hidden gem in Utah.
Yeah.
You know, Utah has so many wonderful national parks, and this one is dirt roads and not very many people, and
I love that.
and you see things like this there.
And what
really
is this?
spectacular.
This is
desert bighorn sheep.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And so I ran into this guy.
So what were you
when we
doing
down
out there?
Oh, just wandering, you know, doing stuff,
Like-
looking for dinosaur bones. I just out having fun out there.
Because there are a lot of dinosaur
Oh yeah, we have
remnants.
right out there. There's a dinosaur quarry
That's
called
so interesting.
Cleveland
I love
Lloyd
that.
Dinosaur Quarry.
I thought I wanted to be what is that? A
Paleontologist, archaeologist,
That. Anyway, so you were out there kind of just digging around, having fun, and then what? You saw?
Well, we were just pulling out, and this guy was coming down off these cliffs to cross the road to go wherever he was headed, and you know, luckily I had a camera with me called an iPhone.
I know, they come in handy.
And I think they'll have a little clip here. But once I saw this, you know, this is the wonderful thing about being an artist, is part of your job is to just be inspired and to find things to be inspired by. And so putting yourself in those situations, getting out.
Right.
You know, Robert talked about it a little bit, getting out and being outside, traveling, doing things. It's part of the job, which is wonderful.
It is.
But I couldn't get home fast enough after, you know, experiencing this guy in his natural habitat doing his thing. And so that's where this painting came from. Sometimes paintings almost paint themselves.
Yes.
You know, it just happens, and you've got so much energy and excitement about it that it just flows.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Desert bighorn in San Rafael. And that's about how far from your home?
Yeah, 45 minutes.
45
it's
minutes.
not very far.
You did say that.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
beautiful. And you really captured the sunlight of that time of day. And so this is the painting you came back in and kind of did some glazing on just to give a little bit more depth. And,
Sure.
and you've really captured that. It's just fabulous. So we've moved over to a different part of the gallery now, and we're in front of another beautiful Stephen Lee Adams painting. And this one has been a crowd pleaser. So tell us a little bit about this.
Well, you know, it's a view that you'll see as you're driving on any road, anywhere, Idaho, Utah, wherever. But you'll just drive past it. You won't necessarily stop, take a look, because it's just kind of a hodgepodge of years and years of gathered farm implements and different things. And
not beautiful maybe to the untrained eye.
Yeah, and maybe not beautiful at all necessarily, but sometimes just the atmosphere, the light, the time of day will transform something that you wouldn't normally think of as an object to paint or of art. To something sublime and beautiful. And
that's what the Impressionists did quite a bit. In fact, everyday scenes that were often overlooked and that sort of thing. And you're very good at doing that.
Yeah, they started that, broke away from things needing to be really important to paint. And so all this, all of a sudden, just somebody picking a flower or something like that could be really beautiful. And
you're very good at that. This is kind of quintessential Stephen in a way. And just the flicks of light and popping like this blue, is that part of moving the eye around the painting, like a method to the madness, so to speak?
Sure, you know, you've got the light raking through here, but you want to get the person's eye to bounce around the painting. Different artists do it different ways. Mostly what I'm trying to do here is create the atmosphere and the light effect, the feeling of depth that captured my attention when I was working on it, or when I saw it initially. That's where photos come in handy because they're a great stepping off point to capture what you're trying to do.
But we don't rely on them, right?
Well, some people do. Some people hyper rely on them. They take it photo and then take it further
That's
than
true.
photo.
That's
So,
true.
there's many ways to do it. I try to use it as a jumping off point. Back in the day, long before digital cameras, I would shoot slides. And I would look through the little slide viewer and try to memorize what I loved about that slide and then replicate that part of it. And so it's harder to do now because usually you're working from a screen, a monitor, or a photo. So you kind of have to pull yourself away from that a little bit so that what you sensed will come through versus just what the camera catches.
I like that. Yeah. And then you also do a lot of plein air painting, and then you're a part of the Nealon Gallery plein air painting exhibition every summer, which
26 years now.
26 years for him.
Yeah.
And I love it. It's such a fun time for us all to get together. But so plein air painting is a part of your repertoire, and then you use that along with your photographs to create a large image like this, right?
Sure.
A large painting like this.
Yeah, often that's the way those things come up. And I think for me, plein air painting was an important step early on too, because every artist when they're young and starting out, you're kind of attracted to other artists' work.
Right.
And that can be, that's really great, and study the masters and that kind of thing.
Who did you like?
Oh, I loved Edward Willis Redfield.
Oh, right.
He's fantastic Bucks County artist.
You've mentioned him.
Yeah, Russell Chatham was obviously a big influence early on.
He used to show at Nealon Gallery back in the day. Yeah.
So that's good, and it's great as a starting point, but you have to find your own voice. And through plein air painting, just being in nature, interpreting what you're seeing while you're seeing it, not from a photo or whatever, you start to find those places and those things that are attractive to you versus another artist's interpretation of that.
And you paint with a palette knife,
predominantly.
Predominantly. And then the other secret tool he uses that I've noticed that I've tried is Egbert. Is that the one?
Yeah, Egbert brush.
It's a
longer filbert.
You can't control as well, I don't think, with that brush.
Yeah.
Or even with
which is
palette
part of its
knife,
charm.
Which is part of the charm. And so that's how you get the real painterly, cool brush. Well, it's not brush. Well, some of it's brush.
Yeah, some of this one has a little half and half.
Half and half?
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, I love this, and it's so fun to have you here with me today and talking about your paintings. And
it's been a pleasure.
Thanks for being on my little show.
Always fun to come to Sun Valley.
I have a secret question I'm going to have you.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you get to choose, so I've got 3 here.
Oh, okay. I don't even.
I know you don't know. I'm going to mix them up. So you're going to pick.
Okay.
They're not hard. It's not algebra or anything. Okay. So now read it out loud, please.
What is your favorite place to paint in Sun Valley?
How perfect is that? Okay.
That's a good one.
Yes.
That's a good one. I think one of my favorite things to do is to head north out of town. Is it on 75? Right? 75. Is to head north out of town. I love going up the SNRA, and Murdoch Creek is a great spot because I get to fish.
Yes, you do.
And paint.
That's true.
You can kind of do that anywhere in the valley, but that little place is beautiful, and that little stream and the fish there are great.
Oh, that's
But
great.
it's really a great place to head up, and it's really fun when everybody's up there in summer. First weekend in July?
It is August. First weekend in August. So I'm excited to see you again, and maybe I'll get the film crew out there and have them follow us around this summer. So thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I know you need to get back down to Helper.
Yeah.
And again, the name of your gallery is?
Adams Fine Arts.
Adams Fine Arts.
Yeah.
And you have a website. And
StephenLeeAdams.com.
And then go on down next time you're in the Moab area and go visit them.
Yeah, be sure and stop in Helper on your way through. Don't just stop at the gas station. Go down Main Street because there's great museums there. There's a Harley museum there.
Oh,
There's just fantastic things happening there. So it's worth the stop.
Well,
for
good.
Sure.
Well, thanks so much, Stephen. I'll see you soon.
Thank you.